Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host. And I have a special guest that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid. And that is comment, ask a question, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this beautiful, is that ginger hair I see there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And it looks like Nora do you pronounce it Nora? I see the little,
Yes, it is
okay,
Nóra.
okay, all right, cool. I got a little confused because it had the little dots or whatever, and or the hyphen, whatever the hell it's called on the top, and I thought maybe it's different. But anyway, we don't really know each other, but I'm so excited to dive into this podcast because she filled out her form, and I believe, if I remember right, I saw you in one of the groups and messaged you, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Yes,
Is that
that's
right?
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I tend to do that a lot. When I see somebody, it was like their story, just like, phew, it's like, okay, I want them on my podcast. And I reach out and just connect. So I feel very grateful that you said yes and that you're doing this. And just so you guys know, she is amazing, and I'm ready to dive into this right along with you guys. So if you're listening or watching either one, just sit back, put your seatbelt on, and we're ready to go. So
For
from what
sure.
you had told me, you are now living in Ireland, but that's not where you came from. So where did you originate at, and what took you to going into Ireland?
Well, I was born in Hungary, but ever
Okay.
since I was a little girl, actually the hyphen on the Nóra that's how we spell it in Hungary, but
Okay.
it's spelling is the same. Um, so yes, I was born there, but ever since I was a little girl, I always felt a call to the Celtic traditions, British Isles. At the time, I didn't really differentiate Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and all of that. It was just those islands. And the call was so strong. And I always knew at one point in my life I'm going to live there.
So when did you have
Um,
that inclination? You said when you were a little girl. How old were you when
well,
that came
I
to
was
your mind?
probably, the truth is, I don't really remember my childhood up
Okay.
until the age of 7. So, what I do remember in primary school, I used to draw English things on my exercise books. And even in
Oh.
my secondary school, it was funny because we were doing Irish dancing on the corridors once a year. There was a really long white corridor. And funny enough, I'm in Hungary, never danced Irish dance, but in my school, we did Irish dancing.
Well,
Crazy.
I guess
Uh,
God, the universe knew that you needed to know, right?
so at the time, I didn't actually know because my connection was more like England and
Mm,
Scotland. But somehow, looking back now, it was there already.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then later on, I moved to England. I lived in England for 8 years. I was married there and I had two beautiful sons. And really, my awakening started in 2007 when I was going through my separation. And so many magical things were happening. It was really
Ooh,
unusual.
well, do
And when
tell.
I,
Just you got to stop and tell us some of these magical things. I love magic.
well, at the time, to me, it was magical because I was
Hmm.
totally not spiritual. Um, Practically as I was going through the process of the separation, I was seeing owls everywhere, like wooden owls,
Ooh.
statues, a white owl or snow owl flew across the road in front of me. And I started to look up these things like symbols and it explained it's all wisdom. And I said, well, that sounds right at the time. And solutions to certain things, how to move back to Hungary. And a lot of things were coming so easy and kind of as if some helpers were working behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Um, so the magic was starting there, and really
Yeah.
my life kind of became magic ever since. When I returned to Hungary, I was surrounded by spiritual people everywhere. Like I was amazed how somehow all people were open to a completely different world and reality.
So it was a very different group of people when you went back than when you
Yeah,
left?
yeah, yeah. It has been, yes. So and England was amazing, but at the time I wasn't awake, so it's a bit sad to be honest, because like Glastonbury and Avalon and all these places that I would have loved to know about, I didn't know at the time. So I kind of missed out the opportunity to visit those places at the time. But nevertheless, so I returned to Hungary and spirituality just kicked in really fast. I was in a deep diving of my awakening. And awakening always starts with self-awareness and discovering who you are,
Right.
or maybe who you are not,
Yeah, yeah,
which
that's
is
kind of where
what
we
I know with
start,
my
right?
latest
Or
workshop.
who you
Yeah,
don't wanna
because
be, right?
first we have to learn who we are not,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
an exciting journey, but it can be very painful and challenging at times. And of
yeah,
course, being a single mom with two kids, it was not easy, not an easy ride at all. Having said that, I enjoyed um, that deep awakening, and I would never change it if I had to, or had the opportunity. I wouldn't want to change it.
right.
So Ireland really came into the picture 6 years ago. Actually, I was. I don't even know exactly how it started. I have to think. Yes, I know actually. I had a funny symptom, and I'm not necessarily want to talk about it right now, but it was a really unusual medical issue, and it just led me to kind of dig deeper because I knew it has nothing to do with medical solutions. I knew it's an emotional trigger, kind
Mhm.
of like uh, I can't really name it any other way than a stigmata kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I started to, well, by then I was a spiritual teacher and a healer, so I knew pretty much where to reach out for help. And I had a beautiful healer friend who was kind of talking to angels, and she was very good at guiding me through my own challenges. She helped me time to time, uh, and kind of it led me to Ireland and the Poor Clares and nunhood and all that stuff. So within a few months, I had to go to Ireland. I just had this really strong call. And apart from the fact that it was a really deep journey of healing about the topic that actually caused the symptoms and all of that, but essentially I fell in love with Ireland. And that was the first time it really kind of started to awaken in me that it's totally not England I want to go back to. Because to be fair, when I left England, I always wanted to go back. I just couldn't find a way to do that.
Mhm.
But then this deep awakening for Ireland, I had to come to Ireland. And well, a few years went by, and 4 years ago, I came again. I had an opportunity, and I had so many different soul aspects coming back to me. My past in Ireland was really haunting me in a good and bad way. So I felt like coming, and I did come for a week, and I had a lot of support. And I remember I was walking in West Cork in the countryside in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly I just had this deep feeling that I belong here. I always really felt I belonged to these islands here,
Mhm.
but like Ireland really awakened in me then, and I was laughing, jumping up and down, crying like a kid, and I just felt I'm home. I'm home. I want to come home. And at the time, I still had my two sons living with me in Hungary. So obviously, that was not the time to leave them behind. And they were all kind of getting close to university and kind of leaving home.
Yeah.
So I had to be patient and waited another 2 years until my dream actually did come true. And I have to say, originally, I was planning to come to hold a workshop. And by then, one of my sons moved out already. And I just had this feeling. My other one was just heading to a music academy in Graz in Austria, so I was practically on my own by then. And my younger one said, "Mom, why don't you just stay in Ireland? That was always your dream. You should just stay." And I said, "Well, actually, you know what? Why not?" So that 1 week trip actually turned into a lifetime change because I practically left my home behind, my dog, my car, everything, my friends, my clients.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
I picked up a suitcase, put my favorite crystals in it because that was way more important than my clothes. So, and I landed in Ireland and I only knew two people. One of
Mhm.
them was not really here, and the other one was kindly enough offering me to stay with her for a week. At the time, I didn't have a clue that Ireland has such problems with lacking properties and rooms to rent. So I was facing a huge challenge because 1 week here is just totally not enough to find a property. So I ended up
Mm.
living with them for a month, and then my journey started. And I'm here for a year and a half now,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
I have to say there was a lot of challenges. I do feel that the first year was all about karma, like healing all the wounds that I experienced in Ireland, and it's just kind of turning into a smoother uh, time in the past months or two.
Did you
I actually
ever
didn't
feel
mention
like, "I've made a mistake, I wanna go back"?
never, even
No,
in the
that's
hardest
beautiful.
times. I just so feel at home. I mean, people laugh at me because I have curly hair, although the red is not natural, it's henna. But my name is Nóra, which is a very strong Irish name.
Mhm.
So it's as if my parents knew
Yeah.
I'm gonna land
So, have
here.
you ever had your DNA done to see if you have a lot
No,
of connection to
no.
Ireland anyway? I bet you do.
Well, I definitely have connection in terms of I had a lot of past lives here, and I know
Okay.
well. I had a period of time when I could really kind of review and see my own past lives. I kind of shut it off a bit lately because I don't really see any point anymore. I feel like the way we are ascending and shifting consciousness, it's like crumbling away, like the past no longer exists. It doesn't make any sense anymore because our heart consciousness is just expanding so much. The past is
Yeah, yeah,
non-existent.
yeah.
And
It's get in the present and the future, right?
yeah, absolutely. Getting into the moment. Because for a long time, I had like 3, 4 years when it was all about past lives. And Um, for some reason, I really had to experience my past lives for the understanding, because actually my astrologist said it to me once that in my life, it's not about a physical experience, it's all about a spirit level, like higher levels, higher realms, and I resolve everything there. So for me, seeing into these lives, understanding what was the wound, what was the problem, kind of helps to understand, and I could instantly turn it around and heal it. So in a way, it was very handy that I could see my past lives, but I actually didn't have many lives on Earth. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
easy because they kept
Well,
repeating after a while.
one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I was very intrigued when I read some of your bio, I guess it was, and you said that you had this different kind of connection with nature and animals.
Mm, yeah.
So do tell, do tell. I want to hear about
Okay.
that.
So I don't even know. Yeah, I think it started when I moved back to Hungary. Um, I lived
When you
about
lived in Hungary before, or when you
when I
moved back?
returned from England.
Okay,
When I
okay.
returned from England.
So it's like a lot of things changed when you went back, right?
Oh yes.
All right. Go ahead. I'm
So
sorry. I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
that's fine. I moved into an apartment that was practically, if I walked out of the house on the other side of the road, there was a forest, a
Hmm.
huge forest and a wildlife park. So practically, I was living in nature. And as my spiritual journey started at the same time, um, I started to realize that I have really unusual experiences, which I didn't think they were unusual, but when I started to share with people, it turned out they are rather unusual.
Yeah. So what were they?
So,
And
um,
just to share here, you know, when you do things naturally, there's always it feels so easy to you, and then other people are in awe, like, how did she do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you probably have more of those gifts you just haven't connected with yet. Go ahead.
Hmm. Well, it's not even what I did, to be honest, what happened around me.
Okay.
And I even wrote a book about, well, like a booklet. It's like a 40-page book. Anyone can download it from my website. My magical adventures with nature. And the truth is, somehow nature became my healer because I was going through my awakening, a lot of kind of recovery from my separation and and breakups afterwards. And, genuinely, I was in a very deep healing journey at the time. And somehow nature just became my healer, my support team. And I had a beautiful oak circle up on the top of the hill where I lived, and I called it the fairy garden. Somehow my connection to fairies is always really strong. Well, I don't see them, but I kind of sense them, and I seem to have very strong fairy nature within me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love dancing around like a little fairy. And yeah, when I was going through this healing period in my life, there was this, I think the most special experience I had with nature is I was walking down the hill with my dog, and that little lane I used to call the butterfly lane because it was always loaded with butterflies. And in the forest, there was no lakes or rivers nearby. And somehow, suddenly, a dragonfly started to circle around my head. And I knew dragonflies symbolize rebirth and renewal. And that was very apt in my life at the time. So I was walking down, and I could feel this dragonfly circling really close to my head. And I was just wondering, who's a brave one doing that? And as I was noticing what's happening, suddenly it was three dragonflies circling
Oh,
around my head.
wow.
And I said, yeah, what's happening here? Magic in the air. And there was more and more. Like I started to count them because there were so many. And I stopped at 70. And
70?
after
70?
70, I'm saying 70. And there were hundreds, like so many. And they were like a cloud of dragonflies around me within
Wow.
seconds. It was, I can't really describe the feeling because all I could feel is joy. It's like when nature is showing you and telling you that,
Yeah.
look, it's all going to be okay. There's some amazing changes coming into your life. And it did, because a lot of changes happened at the time. So that was probably the most amazing
Yeah,
experience I
that's
had.
beautiful. Beautiful. I love that.
And I know it's kind of difficult. I mean, any people I shared it with, they looked at me, yeah, all right, were you dreaming? I said, no, I swear. That, that was a true
Well,
experience in my
they're
life. And
non-believers, that's
well,
okay, you know?
I believe in my
Yeah.
own magic. So
Yeah, I believe too. I mean,
yeah,
there's magic around us all the time. And the difference is that a lot of times we're not open to seeing it. So you were
yeah,
just really open at the time. And,
yeah,
I have conversations with my group on Facebook all the time about this very thing, that if you're looking for magic in your life, it's going to show up. It's going to be
yeah.
there. But you've
And I,
got to be not only saying you want to see it, but you got to feel it, and you got to just be
yeah,
open to however it shows up. So you were
yeah,
definitely a
absolutely.
portal that day for dragonflies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, and butterflies and, owls, eagles, you name it. All the
Nice.
animals are producing foxes lately, a lot of foxes and cows. I mean, cows
I
rescued
wonder
me. I
what
mean,
that
saved my
means.
life
What's
lately.
the fox and the cow mean? Have you looked that up?
But to be honest, cow came into my life and I started to connect to goddess Bridget, and um, she was very much in connection with cows. I don't really know much about them. I just kind of fell in love with them,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
can say so. So every time I walk up there's a little lane going up the hill here. There's fields of cows, and they became my messengers because somehow angelic realms always message me with numbers, and I always keep an eye out because I know all those messages are kind of, they have some message for me within the
Mm-hmm.
numbers that I need to kind of receive and understand and translate. And when I walk up to the fields, and the cows usually come to me naturally, like I don't even do anything. I just stand at the gates and they seem to gather around me.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I sing to them because they are so funny and they love music somehow. and the
I've
other
got this
day, for
visual of you singing to the cows now.
well, kind of singing, humming. But actually, that came from a lady who was like a medium kind of person, and she was telling me, Nora, it's definitely part of your life's purpose to talk to nature, to talk to the trees, to sing to them, and because you have a deep connection with nature. And look, I don't really physically know what's happening, but I do feel that there's a lot happening when I'm out in nature, and I do have a need for nature.
Mm-hmm.
I do need
Me as
to
well.
spend quite
If
a bit of time out there.
Yeah, if I feel stuck in anything, if I can just go outside and take a walk or something, if even if it comes to hug a tree or sit in the yard, if I can do that, the unstuck thing
Mm,
just kind of breaks away. And
mm,
so that's my happy place. And I really, really like being around water. I could care less about
mm,
getting in it, but I like
mm,
being around the ocean or a river or a lake or anything like that. And it seems like oh gosh, the last 25 years, every place that I've lived had a body of water that
mm,
like a river or a lake or like here there's like a it's not really a river, but it's like they've created this man-made lake, I guess it is on the properties. And so it's like I just for whatever reason, I'm just drawn to these water places, you know? I'm
mm.
an earth sign, so I don't know if
Yeah,
that's part of it or not. I'm a Virgo. But yeah, so I'm with you on the nature thing. It just um makes me happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful cleanser because we have a lot of stress in life. Even just walking through a city can be challenging for me. I'm pretty sensitive, and going into nature, it's like takes 5-10 minutes, and I'm back to balance and my
Yeah.
normal self. And body of water is always the element of emotions. So being close to the body of water is always helping to release all the emotions that are uh,
Yeah.
going on within ourselves. So it's useful. But going back to the cows, that
Yeah.
was this
Sorry.
beautiful. No, sorry, we totally. It's fine. It's just a free conversation. So the cows actually come up to me, and the ones that come first, I always read the label on their ears because they have numbers.
Oh, okay.
And my friend in Hungary created an Aura Soma bottle calculator. So I always put the numbers in so I can see energetically what that number stands for. And that's a message to me. And it's so apt every single time. It's magical. And actually, last time it was really funny because all the cows were like really crowded around the gate. And suddenly this cow was kind of peeking through in the middle of the crowd. And I was looking at the number, it was 5 3s.
Oh,
I was like,
wow.
wow. Yeah, a three
Nice.
is a very magical number to me. But
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is, a few months ago, I was walking home from a walk. It was quite late in the evening, and it was getting dark, and I had this really weird feeling that there was going to be an accident. And I mean, it's quite a narrow pass by a main road where I live in the countryside, but I just had this really deep fear that I'm going to be run over. So I went up to the fields, and I was coming back. And suddenly I could see the cows behaving really weird, like running up and down, wrestling, and just totally not normal behavior that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
from them before. And so I stopped and I kept looking at them. What on earth are you doing, crazy cows? And um, and funny enough, the accident did happen. And because I stopped, it didn't happen with me because the
Wow.
car that lost control was practically in front of our house, and it ran up to the pavement, lost control, crashed into the wall. So if I was to go home, I would have been under that car, and the cows stopped me from going
Wow. That's
home. So it
definitely
was actually
an
amazing.
amazing energetic connection there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And foxes, did you ask foxes?
Yeah.
They're kind of, to be honest, they're very cunning and
Mm-hmm.
clever. But to me, the first time they started to come in Ireland was when I was I love the goddesses. I mean, Celtic goddesses are exciting and interesting. And Shiona, excuse my pronunciation, I'm not very good at Irish, but I think that's what she's called. She's a goddess that used to shapeshift into a fox.
Okay.
And at the time when I was reading about her, foxes kept coming. But also, actually, I looked it up one day. What is the spiritual meaning of a fox? And actually, it's associated with enlightenment as well, which I was really surprised.
Oh,
And I did send it out, to be fair, a few months ago that I would like to be enlightened in this
okay.
lifetime.
All right.
Let's aim
Well, then
high.
there you go, right? Well,
You
one
never
of the
know.
things that I wanted to touch on is I know you had said that you had a couple of medical emergencies that kind of put you into a whole different way of doing things too. So can you tell me a little bit
Mm.
about those? I only know enough to reference it, and that's it.
Mm. Well, there was probably three major medical issues in my life. The first one was, goodness, yeah, a lymphoma, and that was in my groin, and I don't even know how many years ago, probably 10 years ago now. Um,
Hmm.
and at the time, I was actually going through an emotional difficulty with some people, and at the time, my boys were like 10 and 12, roughly, or maybe 11 and 13. So I said, there's no way I'm going to die. There's no way I'm going to be ill and not being able to look after them. So, and I was spiritual by then. I was a healer and spiritual teacher by then. So I was very consciously programming myself that no matter what happens now, I'm going to be healthy. And when I had the surgery, the doctor said to me afterwards, well, you don't have to worry much about the results because I know I've seen this so many times. It's definitely cancerous. And I just knew, I knew it's not going to be, I just felt it so deep that in my life, that's just not an option at the moment. And funny enough, the results came back as negative. So it was a good kind of not, I don't really know the medical terms for this in English.
Yeah.
Uh, but she said, well, I don't believe the results. Can we just do a double check and test it again? And I refused. And I said, look, I know I'm healthy and you removed what you had to remove. And I'm not going out that door and I'm not going to come back. And I never did. And I'm healthy, luckily. And I'm not recommending anyone doing the same.
Right, right,
I'm probably a
right.
crazy one in this
We're
respect,
not
but
making medical
but
claims here.
no, no, no. I'm just saying I had such a deep trusting that I'm okay. I
Yeah.
felt it was right to make my step, and there was medical results there saying it's negative. So I trusted that what I created in my reality, because I do believe we create our reality.
Amen.
So, and I was creating health for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And not long after that, probably a year later, I had like a heart attack. Now that was a bit tougher, although very short experience because luckily I overcome it. I didn't even call medical help. I had a teacher at the time and I just called him and I said, look, distantly help me because I can't breathe. Practically my chest felt like I was shut into concrete blocks. I was working in special events at the time and it was really stressful and I really, to be honest, didn't really enjoy doing it anymore. I hardly seen my children, and it was just too much stress in my life at the time. And it was a gift, really, to be honest, because the result was that next morning I quit and I left my job and I said, I don't care what I'm going to do now, but I'm not doing this anymore. I can't deal with that amount of stress. And I had two really strong signs. So that's it, I'm done. So, yeah, I kind of came out pretty well from those. And it just made me a stronger healer and respect my body more, which I do believe. I mean, no matter how I have been to many high realms, I have a very deep connection to the higher realms. Um, but I had to realize that being in my physical body and keeping my physical body healthy is essential. There's no other way. I mean, we are living in this physical
Yep.
vessel, so we need
Got
to
to
look
keep the
after it.
meat suit healthy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
the thing that's coming up for me right now is that, so many people are so ingrained with we got to want more, want more, want more, that they work their lives just
mm,
constantly at the grindstone, constantly working, and
mm,
to the detriment of their relationships, their health, and
absolutely.
everything. And I think I was talking to someone about this morning. I think that even though I'm kind of I struggle with some of the self-help stuff because some of it makes you feel like you're supposed to just sit and then everything appears, right? And
Mm,
and I know that it's inspired action that gets you to do
mm,
things.
mm.
The thing that I love about the newer generation is that they're more in tune to that. They're
Yeah.
not going to just take this corporate job because they're going to get paid this much and they're going to give their 70 hours a week to this job and not have a life. And I know
Mm,
some of them still do, but the biggest majority of people are not doing that anymore. And it's become a whole different way. So it's like that awakening thing is coming at everybody in a different way in some places. And I think this is one of the places that I sometimes have to remind myself because I can get all tied up in, I have these goals set for my business and I'll start, doing and doing and doing and doing. And then I have to remind myself, wait a minute, I'm not being, I'm just doing. And
mm,
then I have to give myself the opportunity to step back and just take some breaths and get in the present moment, do a meditation or do something to be feeding myself instead of constantly doing.
mm. Well, I actually have to say, I had a huge learning in this as well because for a long time I was, well, I have to admit I was a workaholic. It's difficult to deny. Um, I loved working, to be fair. I loved my job. I loved special events. So, and I was good at it. So, um, it was not a burden to me. But I realized that working sometimes 12, 15, even 20 hours a day is not normal and not healthy. And I think that comes from a childhood programming or used to that you have to work hard for money. And
Right.
my dad was a doctor and he was working really hard. We hardly seen him. Um, so that was a programming, a conditioning in my beingness that I have
Yeah.
to work
Mine as
hard
well. Mine
to
as
get
well.
money.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when I had this heart attack, I had a friend at the time, actually my brother's girlfriend at the time. She was getting a job. She was getting a company car, and she hardly had to work, like really easy light work, and she earned a lot of money. And I said, "How do you do that? I'm working my a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't have that much income. I do have a company car, but like the comparison was huge, and she was enjoying life, and I was exhausted and constantly stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I want. And I realized to have that, I have to love myself more and to give myself free time and also to know that I deserve an
Yeah.
easier life.
Yeah.
Because until we feel we need to suffer, we need to fight, we need to work hard,
Yeah.
it
You
comes
know,
hard.
I had a belief and I uncovered this, probably a year ago, that if things came too easy, people would think I didn't deserve it.
Yeah,
What the hell, right?
why
And
not?
I had to remind myself, that the ditch digger is probably a hardest working person out there and they make the least
Mm,
amount of money. So it's not
mm,
how hard you work for something, it's how
mm,
you change the world, how you change lives, how you show up, right? It's not
mm,
so much how hard you work at it. It's what's the difference you're
exactly.
making. That's how I look at it
Mm,
now. If you're
mm.
making a difference, then it's going to flow, right?
Yeah, and also to get out of that kind of 12 hours a day or
Yeah.
regular work. Like I remember when I stopped working for a company and I became self-employed, that was frightening to choose that freedom because that
Yeah.
freedom comes with a lot of responsibility. And people don't
Mm-hmm.
like responsibility. I mean, to be honest, as a healer and spiritual coach, I have to say that that's the most challenging to put through that we are responsible for everything in our life. Everything that happens in our life is our own creation. There's no victimhood. But it took me a while. I mean, I was in a victim mode for a long, long time.
Well, I'll still
But
drop
that's
into
part
it
of the
every now
journey.
and then, when
Well,
something
we
comes
still
up,
drop in, of course, but genuinely, just to
Yeah.
because I keep explaining, if we think we are victims, you can't change anything because you are kind of subject of the circumstances of your life. But if you realize I'm in control, I'm in charge of my own life, which I am, I can change anything. That's a
Hmm.
superpower. We should
Yeah,
enjoy that.
that's
That
right.
should
That's
be good
right.
news. But when you are have been conditioned to be kind of do blame games and always look for answers in some other people, that's not going to work. It's not going to change your life substantially enough to enjoy life
Right.
and
And
create what you really want.
one of the things I notice is that a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to
No,
say it's all me because then they have to
no,
take responsibility for it and
yeah,
they
I
can't
know.
blame others. And a lot of
Mm,
people had rather sit back and say, well, it's because my parents did this, or because the government does this, or Joe Blow down the street said this to me, whatever it
mm,
is, that's why I'm where I'm at.
mm, yeah,
Because it can be very heart-wrenching sometimes to look at your life and see everything that's been going on in your life is the result of the thoughts and the things that you've done, and
yeah.
that you just have to change all that to create something new. But a lot of people are not ready for that, and they'll
Mm,
fight you tooth and nail about how it's somebody else's fault.
mm. Look, they all learn their lessons eventually, and
Yes,
it's.
yes,
I mean, I've been there. I always remind myself, I've been there. I've done that.
yes, me
So I
too,
can't.
me
I
too.
can't expect people to do it faster. They will do it when they are ready. And
Yeah,
sadly, humanity has this terrible habit of learning from difficulties and challenges and accidents and health issues and all that.
that's true.
That's the huge awakening. But we don't need that. We could choose to awaken in a loving, easy way.
Yeah, yeah,
That took me a while as well to choose the easy way.
yeah.
We can choose the easy way. We don't have to suffer and struggle.
So
But
you're an energy healer, is that right?
yeah, I'm an energetic healer. Basically, my healing journey started probably 15 years ago with prana healing, and then I met a beautiful teacher, Erika Barta, who is a heart light healer. She channels this method in Hungary, and it's a beautiful seventh dimensional angelic energy, which is practically preparing people for ascension and the shift in consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's very heart based, very beautiful. Even just being in that energy is change life changing. It was to me anyway, because when I started to learn the healing technique, within a year I became a teacher as well. And now there's like 25 different courses that I teach,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
it just changed my life. And I still feel that whenever I give this healing technique to people, they just they are amazed how gentle, how beautiful it is. And it's all based on fine touch, and fine touch awakens the heart, opens up the heart. And essentially, every healing is about self-love, because when we open up our heart and we are willing to love ourselves, we want to heal ourselves. We don't want to suffer anymore.
Yeah.
So that's part of my healing work. And I do a lot of workshops that are kind of for self-discovery. I started to create my own workshops, and the recent one is the Who Am I Not, which is my favorite. Actually, that was a result of an accident. That was the third one. Actually, we didn't get to that, but I broke my jaw in April this year.
Okay.
I I was holding a workshop, 2-day workshop, teaching the Heartlight technique to some lovely ladies, and we went to on the end of the first day. We wanted to get out and just be in nature, so we went to a sacred well, and the rain started to come down after a huge, beautiful rainbow we were staring at. And there was a little wooden hut, and I was trying to run in there, and I slipped, discovered with algae, and I fell on a bench and broke my jaw. And I
Wow.
was like, why am I getting this? I can't speak for 6, 8 weeks. I can't eat for just liquid diet. So it was like I was shut down
Mm-hmm.
completely for 2 months, and I had to look for the purpose. And there was a lot of aspects behind it, but what it gave me is I had the chance to write down all these, practically the 16 years of self healing that I've been through. I put into this workshop. It's 4 occasions. It's still kind of evolving because every time I open the file, it just grows bigger and bigger because I want to put more and more in it. but essentially it helps anyone who is kind of going through their awakening and self-healing journey. Because, well, one of my favorite writers, Michael J. Rhodes, was saying in one of his books that we could heal no problem if we could just love ourselves more,
Yeah.
much more. No
Yeah.
healing would be needed, but we are just not ready to do that. So I'm afraid there is a healing journey, and we need to go through the self-discovery and all those challenges I've been through. And the truth is, people who were like way shores for me, they did it in 20, 25 years. Then I did the same in 15 years. And my students who I teach, they do it in 2 years. So because the vibration changed so much in the past years, healing is so much quicker. And even things that I used to do for healing myself, I no longer do because I feel pure intention just changes everything. Like what I used to heal, dig into the past lives and angel cards, and I did it all, soul retrieval, forgiveness, and all of it. I don't do it anymore. I just send out a pure intention that I want to transmute this energy within myself, this pattern. And sometimes overnight it's just gone because I'm ready to let go. I've done so much work on myself in the past 15 years, and the energy is so supportive. You just don't need to do it anymore. Uh, but, you know, it's different for everyone. So
Yeah.
I actually really like, I hold women's circles as well. Um, and they are really powerful because I do feel that when women get together, I mean, our grandparents used to do that, even our ancestors going back in time. I think it's so important to the contribution to their lives
Yeah.
that they can share. I mean, I remember when I gave birth to my children, and I felt. I mean, I moved to England at the time. I hardly lived there for 2 years, and I knew nobody, and I never went through like being a mother, so it was really challenging at the beginning. And when I started to go to like a play group for really young kids,
Hmm.
I started to connect with mothers, and I realized, oh my God, they are going through exactly the same. So a women's circle is such a powerful tool to heal and to understand that we are all going through similar issues. So I actually really enjoy holding women's circles. They are very powerful.
I
And I have
bet.
seen transformations at amazing levels, really.
Yeah. So
I
do
really
you do
enjoy that.
most of yours, I guess, in person, right?
Well, I've been doing most of my work in person. To be honest, I would love to do more online because some of my Hungarian clients at the moment are obviously, I'm working with them online. And I have clients in Australia, people who I've never met. We
Yeah.
just work online, and I quite enjoy that. It can be very powerful. So I'm actually building up a bit, trying to build up more of online work because
Okay.
I do feel I want to have more freedom, like traveling around. I do feel that's part of my journey, and I guess that's kind of preparing for that, to be able to travel more and not just get stuck in one city, because I feel that's not me.
Well,
I want to.
it's interesting because, one of the things that COVID did for us was open up the portal, so to speak, so that we branch out more,
Mm,
because I'm a transformational coach and a hypnotist. And before COVID, everybody said that you couldn't do hypnosis and that online you had to be in person, you had to be able to touch them, and affect
right,
these changes.
not
Well,
true.
that has been debunked for sure, because now even the people that I work with that live close to me, they want to do it on Zoom. And then that way they don't have to travel in the Atlanta traffic to get to me. They don't have to worry about, what time they get off work so they can get here and all of those time restraints, right?
Yeah,
And sometimes I feel like it almost enhances the energy exchange with
yeah,
being on Zoom. It's magical. I love it. And one of my friends is a Reiki healer, and we've done Reiki sessions, and man, I can feel that energy coming through the screen. It's amazing. And so this is just another tool that we have that opens up the world, right? Because I have very few clients that are local to me. Most of them are all over the place. So it's amazing.
Well, the truth is, I do like the personal stuff because I work with touch. I mean, I'm a very tactile person. Even just hugging my students who come to a workshop, it's such a huge experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to give in because, freedom comes at a price.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I have
you
done,
might find that even though it's not the physical touch, the connection is still just as huge.
always there. I
You
mean, we know
know,
energy is
yeah,
not
it
tied to
because it's
space or, yeah.
amazing. And I have some people that I consider the closest friends I have, and I've never seen them in person. But
Wow.
that connection is intense. It is just magical is my only word that I can say. It's like it's like one of those connections that it feels like um, it could withstand time and space and everything. So it's different. It's like it's not tied to the physical touch. It's like this mental thing or
Yeah.
whatever, you know? So yeah, so explore that more. You may
I know your
find
words.
yeah, you may find that
Yeah.
you even though you still like the physical touch with people, that this it's like, oh, I say it's delicious. It's just the one of those things that completes. It's like the process is like needed a few little things, right? And then this one sent it over the edge, like this is the answer. This is the way that I can affect more people. I don't have a room big enough to put these people in, and this is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do have confirmations that it works. Like a few days ago, well, probably last week, I had a beautiful session with one of my Hungarian clients, and she had a really stressful time for 6 months now, and she had incredible pain in her shoulders. She was actually going to the doctor next morning, and we kind of did an online consultation. I didn't even do healing. I just practically I was coaching her through her problem, and after an hour, 20 minutes, she was totally in peace. And next morning she wrote to me, "No, I don't know what you've done, but my pain is absolutely gone from my shoulder. I'm heading to the doctor. I don't know what I'm going to say because I have no pain." And I said, "So thank you so much." So I know because like behind every pain there is an emotion, and if the emotion is resolved and you understand what's the energetics behind what's happening in your life, the solution is there and the healing comes. I guess the healing, it depends on how deep that wound, how much we have fed that energy, that emotion, it kind of reflects in the physical body. But I know for a fact, I mean, our physical body is an indicator of all our emotions. I regularly have experiences when totally suddenly out of the blue, I have pain in one part of my body. And the moment I recognize what that emotion is that triggered it, it stops straight away.
Yeah,
So our body is actually amazing. We just have to listen a bit more. And
yeah. Need to learn
and
to
I have
listen to it.
and what I find actually in Ireland, that's I would say that's typical of Ireland. Energy healing is not very popular here.
Hmm.
Like in my country, energy healing is a very common thing, and a lot of people go for energetic healing. And there's so many variations from different methods. But here in Ireland, people seem to be more keen on readings.
Okay.
And I get a lot of phone calls. Could you please tell me the future? And I said, no, sorry, I do readings, but I do energy reading from angel cards just to see what's happening energetically in the background for you so that you can improve your own life.
Ooh, do you
But
have your
future
cards with
telling,
you? Do you have your cards with you? You could just pull a card.
I know it. My God. Hang on. I think that's, hang on.
Okay.
Just
All
a
of a
sec.
sudden it was like cards. Oh, yes.
Just,
Oh,
I have a
my friend
lovely
that's the
angel.
Reiki healer, she loves her energy, her angel cards. So what are your cards look like?
Well, they've been heavily used.
Oh, I love
Um,
all the colors. So those that can't see or just listening, she just fanned out those cards and they are beautiful, all types of colors. I love it. All right,
okay, do
so
we have a question or?
pull us a card. I need to give it a question, or you
Well,
do.
it's a good idea. Or just what's in the air. We can ask what's in the air
Okay.
energetically at the
Yeah.
moment
Yeah.
for you. For you, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, that's Zatkia,
All
Archangel
right.
Zatkia. And the topic related to Zatkiel is getting to know who you are. Zatkiel was actually my guide for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a time when I was going through my kind of self-discovery. Um, so it's, I mean, he's the archangel of faith, but essentially his main topic is kind of getting to know yourself, your true self.
Okay.
It's a
Beautiful.
beautiful journey when he's our guys. Well, I don't like to kind of label he, she because angels don't have gender, but
Yeah.
it's
So
just
they,
tricky.
they.
To me, he's masculine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's probably maybe they become feminine or masculine depending on what you need in the moment.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Although,
Yeah.
like, Archangel Michael is always very masculine.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you
But
say
that's
that one's name
again
was?
Zatkiel.
Zatkia.
Zadkiel. Zatkiel. Actually,
Zatkia.
sometimes they spell it with T-Z. I think in order somewhere it's the Zatkiel. But yeah, I will send it to you afterwards.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so thank you for doing that. You know, I love the cards and everything, and I've played with them myself, but I don't have the draw to them that I once did for
Mm,
whatever reason. I don't know. But I'm always on this self-exploration journey, trying to, or not trying, but learning more about me and who I am. And that's
mm,
basically one of the reasons I started my podcast about a year ago, is that I had filtered my voice my whole life. And depending on who I was around, what I was doing, I acted and talked depending on what I thought was acceptable in these different
mm,
places. And so I was finally got to the point where I said, I'm tired of this. I want to have this outlet. And I thought, podcast. I could that way, if somebody doesn't like what I say, they can just turn it off and go on, right?
mm,
And it's been such an amazing, beautiful journey meeting people like you that I probably never would have met otherwise. And
mm,
so I feel like when I met my teacher that taught me how about the podcast, and she's helped me with so many other things on my journey, that's when my life changed, because it was the thing that got me being more authentically me. I can be vulnerable. I can just talk and enjoy the process and not constantly be filtering what I say or pushing my emotions down because maybe they're not acceptable. And
mm.
because that's what I did forever. And so I love the card that you pulled. It's just actually perfect for me. And so it's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I have to say, they became my life, God, probably 9 years ago. Actually, no, must be more than that. 2015, roughly, when I did the angel course. And I always been drawn to angels, and I have a deep connection with them. And when I got this card, well, participated in this angel card course, it just became a love affair. And this deck of card I have ever since. And I have to say, there's not one single day when I don't pull cards. It became my self-healing tool because there's lots of layouts that you can do, and you can read. I mean, there is a lot of black spots that we don't see in our own life. Even healers. I mean, there are certain things that I don't see in my own life, and cards never lie. So if I'm
Mm.
really stuck, I just throw the cards out, and they push me through. If I'm not seeing what I'm supposed to see. So I actually love using cards. That's a deck that's always in my bed. I don't go anywhere without this deck,
Yeah,
of
see, my
course.
daughter's that way. She has cards and she keeps some in her bag, and then I can hear her sometimes in another room shuffling and all kinds of stuff. So she's always with hers. Well, we're getting close to time. So this has been such a fast journey, and I feel like we hardly even touched on some of the things that you do, but I'm so intrigued and excited to have met you and explore some of these things with you. And so anybody that's watching and listening, I want you to know that I'll put in the description, I'll put links to wherever Nóra can be connected with you. And that way they can reach out to you and find out how you can help them. How does that sound?
So much. That's perfect. I'm really
Beautiful,
grateful.
beautiful. So is there anything that I didn't think to ask that you had in mind that you wanted to share before you got on that you could tell us real quick?
Mm. To be honest, there's one thing I would like to share.
Okay.
I've been through this long journey in my spiritual journey, and if there's one thing I learned, and I think that's the most important message to everyone. The only important thing is to choose love, like really, really live from a loving, heartfelt way. You don't have to be spiritual to make the ascension happen for you. You just need to be with an open heart, and that's the key to everything. Finding peace, forgiveness, and love. And I'm not talking about the kind of human love that we talk about. It's like the unconditional love, acceptance of others, because that's the only thing that matters. Nothing else, really.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm very appreciative. And so I'm going to leave everyone with my favorite quote, and it is the best way to predict the future is create it. So everyone create the best future that you can because it's all in your own hands. And I will see you next time. Mwah.